When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ludlow, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, folks. Mark Ludlow here with the Fearless Mindset Podcast. And today, I don't know how we did it, to be honest with you, but we got Robert L. Dodge. I can't believe this guy is like bigger than the president of the United Nations. I mean, he's all over the globe, and he's so good at what he does, folks. As you know, Allied Universal just bought his old employer out. That's how good Robert L. Dodge is in business, understanding security, and now he's the CEO of how do you say it, Robert?
Prosegur
Global Risk Services. He's the CEO now. He went from president, now CEO. So if that tells you anything about the level of guests we have here today, folks, you guys are in the security industry, the bodyguard world, or you have your own shop, have your own flag, you're trying to get into business, trying to understand what's going on, are you going to make it? Well, we're going to cover those questions in today's show. It's going to be kind of a freestyle. We'll have some questions for Robert, but I want you guys to get to know Robert Dodge and who he is. I've known Robert for a long time. He gave me my first crack in the EP world. I came down from Oregon in blue jeans and a flannel shirt, and they called me Logger Mark from Oregon. And they had to take me shopping at Macy's to give me in the white wardrobe, so I knew what to look like in business casual attire in Southern California. That was back when I was 30 years old. So time has flown by. Now I got a collar shirt. So hope you guys are laughing at that. But give you guys the background on Robert Dodge. He's got a bachelor's degree from Northeastern University in criminal justice. Is that right, Robert?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Bachelor's degree there, FBI grad, CPP certification. That's like going into law school and getting a certification. That's pretty hard, and it's not easy to do. He spent 14 years senior vice president of Pinkerton, and then he spent about 5 or 6 years as the president to G4s Corporate Risk. So Robert is the real deal, folks. There's a lot of players in the industry, but as people know, Robert in the corporate world, the guy's a no joke. He's done investigation cases around the world, and he's made a name for himself, but he's worked really hard to get that name and that branding for himself. So welcome, Robert. Welcome to the show. We're going to cover a lot of territory.
Mark, thanks. It's great to see you. Love your background of the flag. You're a true patriot, my friend, and you are way too complimentary. I only have one way to go, and that's down in this interview. So I hope I don't let down your audience. And I'm not 7 feet tall and fire breathing. What's that? The Braveheart movie? Remember that, Mel Gibson? But no, I'm honored to be on here, my friend, and and have a conversation with you. And this pandemic has kept us all away from each other way too much. But thank God for these video calls and things like that.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I know you're busy. You have like 20 calls a day and conference calls. I don't know. Are you sick of Zoom calls yet? Are you sick of it? Radio for
face-to-face? Kind of. But I've been traveling again. I've started my crazy travel stuff again. Was in Paraguay 2 weeks ago, Mexico this week, Brazil next, and then on and on. So that's my excuse to get away from some of these calls. So, but as long as I can get a break from them, I'm okay. But talking to you, priceless, Mark.
Thanks. I appreciate it. We'll have some fun with this one. It looks like you're putting Prosegur on the map in the U.S. Tell us more about Prosegur and what they are doing at a global scale to the audience. What's taking place globally? And I mean, you're traveling like every other week around the world.
Yeah, no, listen, it's Prosegur, a really interesting firm. They're headquartered in Madrid, Spain. They're technically the third largest global firm right now in the world. They are new to the U.S. market. They came in here, I'd say 2-3 years ago, made some strategic investments, hiring some key people. I've been on board right about 6 months now. With the organization, and highly innovative company. I've been very impressed with what I've seen. But what makes them unique, I guess, in the security world is, they've got the classical security officer man guarding part of the business globally. We got about, 170,000 employees that operate in 27 countries directly, and then indirectly in a bunch of other places. We have, electronic security. We have now the global risk business, which I run globally. And then the fourth part of that, which I think is really cool, is we own a global cybersecurity company called Cypher. And so they're really more of an integrated security or risk mitigation provider than some, most of the other companies. They have one or two or three, but not all four of those kind of buckets. And they're also very large in the cash handling business. Think about the armored trucks and stuff like that around the world. And they have an alarm business, but the security division is made up of those four. So it's the logo is yellow. It's a bright yellow, so you can't miss them when you see them. But for me, it's exciting to help them build out this global risk capability, things that I've been doing for a long time. They've had some pieces of it, Mark, and I've been asked to put those together. But the best part for me is hiring good people and building out, especially the U.S. piece from the ground up.
I know what you did over at G4s Corporate Risk. I mean, you had a stellar team. I mean, you had some major league baseball players on your team, and you guys are going for the World Series. And you guys hit the World Series, so to speak, as an expression in the corporate world. I mean, Allied Universal came and bought you guys up because that's how good your team was and great leadership on your end.
Yeah, listen, mergers and acquisitions are part of life, part of business. And I wish Allied all the best, but G4S was a tremendous company. At least the division that I worked in here was very, very strong, and lots of great people. And for those that decided to move on, they've all found new homes and gainfully moving forward. Right, cream rises to the top, no matter where it is, Mark. So that's been an interesting journey, and consolidation in the market, with a lot of these companies, but also creates opportunities for companies like Prosegur to show what they can do as well for those who want to see other brands in the market. I think it's an exciting time, and frankly, a lot of the smaller companies are able to maybe step up a little bit more with some of the diversity.
I would say branding has been your thing. You know how to brand a company very well. Is that a huge component in success in a business and core values, and people recognizing the brand?
Well, I think you're being a trusted advisor, no matter what it is you do. If you're selling widgets or you're doing protective services or corporate investigations, I mean, I think that's really what people graduate to, they want to engage with, and that goes way past the corporate logo, right? That comes always down to the people, right? Our insights are our value proposition. I always joke, I don't sell anything, I solve problems, or I try and solve problems, really, for our customers around the world. And then, once they see that face or that name that they've been associated with, right, just like a logo, which ultimately can get built up with, a certain brand means certain levels of predictability. It might not be perfect all the time, right? That hotel you like to stay in or that restaurant, but overall, you're going to experience that good quality of service, right? And right now, things on the service front are very challenging. It's not just in the security industry, it's everywhere, for a lot of reasons, the labor shortage and all kinds of things. So people are still the good old thing. Everybody says, well, everybody's just shopping for bottom line price. That's not my experience. People still want that customer service. They want that responsiveness. And more importantly, they want you to take care of their problem so they don't have to call you and say, hey, what's the status? And that's really what people is looking for. And, you don't have to be a rocket science, but it just takes good people that have that mindset, and you bring them together. And next thing you know, you should have a good business going.
Yeah, that's been critical. I mean, from a small scale that I work at, the different projects, you're exactly right. They want to make sure you can handle little things before they give you the big stuff. And even if you're a little foot soldier, EP agent, bodyguard, you are the representation of your company and organization.
Mark, we had a protective detail in eastern part of the country that we did, and the client was over the moon about it, right? And that doesn't mean because when you're dealing with people, you will have ones that don't go the right way as well. It's just human nature. But the key success factor wasn't any of my people in the management side. It was the agents on the ground that when we're working for a corporate security client, but the clients themselves, the CEO level folks that we were guarding, they're protecting their houses with people, when they're making compliments about the agents and how they're making them feel safe, and that's the home run, because that gets back to the security director and really makes his department look really good. And at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do, is to make them look better. But at the end of the day, Mark, as you know, you've been that guy, and me much earlier in my career, sitting out there in the middle of the night, trying to keep, looking out for the bad guy and protecting that asset. My power and strength only comes from your ability to do a good job. My big thing is, how do I prepare you to succeed? My kryptonite is, if you do not do a good job, then I'm dead man standing, So
I've received that call from you.
Basics are still the most important thing, man. Just the running, blocking, tackling is still critical.
Right.
Always will be.
And for the audience listening, our podcast subject today will be 2022 forecasting challenges, security, risk, and business resiliency. I'm still waking up. Been a long night, doing different projects throughout the night, servicing clients and stuff. So excuse the yawns and the winks and all that. Burning at both ends, not quite like Robert is, but I'm catching up to him.
Yeah, you're West Coast time, on East Coast time, so
I'm you got 4 hours ahead of me. It's not fair.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be talking about, folks. So if you're tuning in on your phone, your YouTube, whatever, we're talking about 2022 forecasting challenges, risk, and just what's happening in the business world. And Robert just kind of covered it from the global standpoint. And if you're a practitioner and you're a corporate chief security officer, and you want to know what Robert's thinking, just tune in, listen into what he has to say, because we're going to cover a few things here. I have a questionnaire to kind of give us a little format of structure, so Robert can nail down some key ideas and thought processes of what's happening in 2022. And I guess, the big one right now, Robert, as we're watching Beverly Hills, San Francisco just burn, looting, smash grab. What's your thoughts on crime and violence as we head into 2022? Do you think, is it getting worse, getting better? What's the cause for the uptick?
Yeah, well, so Mark, great question. At the end of the day, we really have two pandemics going on. We have one, which is COVID-19, a second one, which is fear, violence, and uncertainty globally, right? That is causing, record increases in, violence, criminal activity, and a whole host of, concerning things that our clients and us as practitioners need to stay involved in. And then there's multiple factors behind this, right? I mean, it's certainly the stress, the endemic stress of the last 2 years of the pandemic that's put on society in general. Mark, I think you've heard about the air rage scenario. I mean, that kind of sums it up, right? When ever did we have this? Never have had 5,000 incidents on various types, many often leading into violence or fights and things like that on planes, all within the last year. So that kind of summarizes it. And you don't have, you're on the streets and you're driving, and just the way people are driving nowadays, and you just got to be really, really careful. You got to be really, really aware and recognize that people can snap at a moment's notice. So there's a lot of things there. I think, the supply, access, the supply chain challenges and problems we have globally is kind of decreasing the size of the pie for criminal organizations. And so they're acting out more, right? Violence, control, if you think about Latin America, control over those drug supply routes, there's not the precursor, they can't get the precursor chemicals, and boom. So that leads to more, control issues, violence, fighting for a smaller, part of the pie, and and just total disregard for human life with some of the criminal actors out there. So I think you're going to see continued activity in that space, moving forward, right, into 2022. I don't see any slowdown really. I think law enforcement, others, the whole defund the police thing, which I think hurt our law enforcement brothers and sisters. the federal agencies too. A lot of them have been losing some really, really good people, and it's really tough because they're not feeling the support and the love that they should rightly get. So that's also creating conditions where, and of course, the civil and criminal court system, and I mean we've all seen this movie. We've been seeing it playing out. It's frustrating as all can be. But all those things are contributing to, the inmates are basically running the asylum right now. And we've got to get it back under control as a society, both in the United States and other parts. And then you put in all the polarization, Mark, between the political issues, the controversies around vaccines and masks and other things, depending on how you view the world. And then, the economic bloodshed that's happened over the last 2 years that will probably continue in, different varieties unless we can get out of this pandemic or start moving forward. There'll be more cuts, right? And that'll lead to more issues. So anyway, that's a high level view as what I see is going on and moving forward. I wish I had a, I guess the positives, right? Before we get all negative, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the global poverty rate, has, despite all this, has continued to get, to decline. Our healthcare, we look at that. We produced incredible vaccines in record time to fight COVID-19, and so there are good things in the world. There's no major conflict, right? There's no World War III going on right now.
Great point. Yeah.
So, and there aren't a ton of conflicts compared to what we normally have pre-pandemic. So, we all have to be positive, but when you ask the question on the violence stuff, I gave you my thoughts. So,
right. I've been talking to my business partners down in Orange County, California, and we got multiple projects going on both in San Francisco and LA. And our thinking is this is highly coordinated, highly planned, probably on some communication platform on the internet they're using, because they all know what they're doing and it's all strategic. Any thoughts from your sources on, with different agencies and stuff on if that's pretty reliable, accurate thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what we're hearing. It's not just a bunch of loosely affiliated people that show up together at the same time, same place, and conduct a criminal act. It's being pre-planned. But the good news is that this is not, the high end of the organized crime spectrum, right? Where, they don't leave much evidence. I mean, these guys are starting to get picked up. It's teenagers, young adults, and there's been a whole bunch of arrests. It's too bad it's taken this long for the public outcry to reach the governments to respond a lot quicker to this. But this is an outlay of everything else I just talked about that's drove that brazenness to get to where it is. But I mean, we got to continue to disrupt these things. On the retailer side, I know they're looking at multiple options to help, whether it's increasing security, hiring, folks like Mark in your line of work, higher end protective agents, maybe to conduct, be on the outskirts of the property and then to really surveil and maybe follow those people if there is a break-in, and then lead law enforcement to them or gather intelligence. Because if the police aren't doing it, they're going to come to the private sector to keep them safe and secure. But I think that they'll get their arms around that. That's not my biggest concern. It's the random violence and other things that are out there, the active shooter threats, the school scenario, the vehicle ramming we saw up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Those things, lone wolf violence, right? Extremist violence. I see that picking up again. But it's making the news cycle. So we'll see what happens with the retail theft.
Yeah, I got so many questions going through my head. I can't figure out which one I want to pick, but it's pretty insane out there. And there's a big theory. Probably conspiracy theory out there that, hey, are we going to get hit with terrorist cells and have the big 9/11 hit us again? And I hear a lot of people say, some people say, no, not really. I just had Sam for Han. He was just on. He's a consultant with Eric Prince there. He's on the pretense of he doesn't think we'll see a 9/11 on U.S. soil. But he says like you're saying, more lone wolf type of attacks, individual cell type acting out on their own accord, based on their ideologies to make a statement, to be famous for them.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know 9/11, but a coordinated attack could possible at a soft target. I mean, I wouldn't put that past. Look at the border issues. How many folks are sneaking through there?
Good point.
With internal, in-country support. But for them to do a mass casualty attack, I'm not willing to say that won't happen here. Okay. But we're better than at least historically. I worry about all the good people that are leaving law enforcement, but right. Over the last few years, we've been better than we've ever been at communicating with all the different agencies, including the private sector. So hopefully that will keep us safe. But all of us have an obligation there, right, to keep our eyes and ears to the ground. See something, say something. That great motto, absolutely. Right? We should all follow that, because the government's great, but there's only so many of them. There's a lot more of us on the private sector, and we got to help each other.
I know a big conversation going on in the back channel, like Facebook and stuff. People are wondering, are we going to see like a Blackwater mercenary type private security industry taking over ad hoc to law enforcement agencies to supplement what they can't do to do to budget cuts? Are we going to see that? Is that why your organization is expanding in the U.S.? Do they see that opportunity?
Yeah, I think we're expanding in the U.S. for a lot of reasons. I mean, Prosegur has been outside of the U.S. in many, many countries for many years, and it's just the logical place to be. This is still the largest, I'd say, security market or corporations that spend money globally. So obviously, this is a key place, and we want to be here to help, the multinationals, both in country and outbound, provide those support services for them. Yeah, I think there will be a trend of outsource services on maybe the less serious needs, right, of policing and law enforcement. I mean, some of that's already happening. Police at like a rail station versus not the direct 911 responders. That stuff's always going to stay, I believe. But all the periphery details that maybe they can't do anymore, or they're not being properly funded, or they need to make cuts. All those things, I think, will be picked up with varying degrees of efficacy by the private sector.
Right. Totally makes sense from what we're seeing on the ground. There's a lot of EP, executive protection agents and bodyguards that listen to this show, and I hear they're always wondering, trying to plan out, well, I'm going to the Close Protection Conference in Vegas next week. And they're going to want to know, hey, is there going to be EP going on with all these executives traveling around nationwide, or is that going to be happening again? My thoughts are, as long as we're working remotely, and we have the hybrid the models going on corporately, I really don't see that much of a demand for EP C-suite level drivers to be doing EP driver security type work yet. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, great question. I mean, historically, that's not been a huge business in the U.S. I mean, internationally, when they travel, sure, or sometimes there's the residential details, but I do see that turning a little bit, and right, because you law enforcement's busy and you can't rely on them in a protective capacity in most places, right? They're more of a reactive capacity. And as cities or locations, if they continue to deteriorate, right, and it's not safe, I could see more U.S. corporations, putting some investment in private protective programs for their key, leaders or people on site. I could see an escalation of, more armed security from unarmed security. And then at the CEO level, right, depending on where they're moving and going and what type of environments they're in, I could see that increasing, right? And all it takes is a couple incidences and it hits the news cycle, and then next thing you know, everybody wants it.
Yeah, do brand reputation protection at that point.
Yeah, I agree. And, and then the consultative piece of that's very, very important, Mark, as you know, right? I mean, those executive protection assessments, right, to really figure out how do we protect this executive. And it's not always, hard power. Sometimes it's soft power. It's more white collar things around intelligence, led risk management and providing them information versus actual, security agents that, are going to crowd that executive, because that's not what they really want. They want the security, but they don't want it in front of them at all 24/7, right?
Yeah. And then, you have new chief security officers going into new roles, new hybrid programs being created in Silicon Valley. And if they're building, let's say they're building a program right now, there's some different organizations that use different sales styles to impress on and why they need security. Are you a big proponent on educating the client of that CSO level? Say, hey, this is the risk assessment, this is the threat assessment, and to mitigate your risk, that's what we advise you to do. Is that kind of the business model that you present at that level?
Mark, if I could get an assessment for almost every type of service a client needs on the front end, I would, if they allow me to do that, we would do it, because it's they have to obviously have the time, place, and resources to support that. But a risk-based approach is in vogue, and it's absolutely critical to kind of eliminate the noise and focus on what is that likely threat based on existence, capability, and intent. And then what does the vulnerability look like? How well do we deter that threat? How well do we detect that threat? How well do we slow them down or delay that threat? And then ultimately, what's the response to that potential threat look like? Are we bringing a knife to a gunfight? And then prioritizing that, risks a formula: threat, vulnerability, and then, what we call impact and consequence. And so, taking that, and you can use that for whether it's a travel risk management program, an executive protection program, an investigative program. You can apply that white collar, assessment methodology. And if you think about other industries, they do it, right? You go to see a doctor the first time, they give you a phys. It's an assessment of your health. Are you really healthy, or are you about to, keel over, right? Don't know. Right. Financial services, Mark, right? You're doing well with your money, or, oh my God, you're a disaster. And they give you, automated assessments. You talk to somebody, they look at things. It's all the same thing. We just do it within our world, right? And I think most of our clients, Mark, and I know you interface with a lot of folks in the industry. I mean, almost all of them kind of believe in that, but then the real world kind of gets in the way, whether it's a resource or the speed of the game and just life, and the corporation itself is running 150 miles an hour. So I think everybody wants to do that, but when we get the opportunity, we push it hard.
Like we both know, and the audience knows, that work in the security industry, this is a knee-jerk reaction type of an industry that we work in. It's like you get a call sometimes 4 hours before you need to have somebody on the ground because someone just got threatened by an email. You got to be on the ground in Southern California or in Orange County somewhere at a employment agency or something. And it's just how this industry works. And the young guys coming on board, I want my 40 hours a week. I want that estate detail that's cool and happy, and I get to be an EP agent and plain clothes. I'm like, that's maybe 1 gig out of 100 gigs. And you got to be very flexible if you want to survive in the industry. You got to have a skill set, a trade craft that's very well rounded. Like you guys are in cyber as well, and I bet cyber security is probably 80% revenue for your organization. I'm sure that's a lot of revenue in investigations.
Yeah, I mean, cyber's a massive industry within itself, and I think that the real issue here is when you look at the threat picture, Mark, you got the physical side, and the cyber side is typically how we go to market, right? Most organizations, and they're siloed. You can't solve the 21st century risk and threat picture by having a siloed security organization, right? Cyber physical. They have to be converged. And I talked earlier about Prosegur's mindset around that. And we've written white papers, and we're constantly building those products. And, I've only been here 6 months, but I can tell you I'm knee deep in that in terms of that converged risk mitigation strategy and what we're doing. But, everybody needs to think about that, because you can't divorce the two anymore. The digital or virtual world and the physical, it's all integrated one way or the other, whether it's a single point of failure or a way to stop a bad guy. It has to be part of our solution. And I have former government members on my team, FBI, different organizations, and that's in the pandemic, especially that stuff's increased 10,000 times, right? The amount of cyber hacking attempts, ransomware threats. So if you're on the physical side, you're on the protection side, and you're traveling with a principal, for instance, are you advising them on, the not just the physical risk, but are you thinking about, electronic or digital risk to them, right? Or have they brought a clean machine to them to a foreign country? Are they clearing out the browser, right? Are they bringing a burner phone? Yes or no? Or how are they operating, or at least a clean one that doesn't have their primary information on it? Right. Technical surveillance countermeasure. Do your protection folks know anything about that? If you don't, you should, because a listening device, right, in the right place, and that takes away critical key information about that company or that executive could cause, and it could put that company out of business. Right. And so it's more of these white collar things,
right,
Mark, that are on the digital and the physical converged kind of world that I really want everybody on your viewership, your listenership to really try and place themselves and get a lot better at that, and thinking through all those areas of risk, because I think that's the future, and that's how they're going to be much more valuable to guys like me that hire people like that, but also our clients.
What are the biggest mistakes you see high net worth family kids making? Because right now, everybody wants to be an influencer on Instagram. It's all about the viewers and the followers. And you got, their teenage kids out on the yachts, taking, doing live to pick up followership, viewership and followers. And then they want to get paid by Facebook or Instagram by their Kardashian kids, $500,000 for a photo, or whatever. Do you think that is the biggest risk that families have, is social media at this point in time in our culture?
Well, I don't want to pretend to be an expert on all that Instagram, all this. Mark, you know a lot more about that than I do. I'm a LinkedIn guy. I do use LinkedIn, but
yeah,
yes, I have seen problems where executives have come where one of their kids is communicating with somebody of ill repute, or some bad scenario unwillingly often. So it's a major threat vector. I would say for families, executives, their kids, right? Because the bad guys, remember, if they can't get to the executive directly, they may get to their family and somebody who's wide open, exploitable, position to that executive. So I think social media is, there's great benefits to it, but there's extreme risks that, people need to think about. And if you assume your kids, and I have kids, I have a daughter and a son, you assume they're just, playing innocent little games when they're locked in their room with their phones or not, you're going to be rudely surprised, because they're all going to do things, explore things, and maybe if they don't necessarily initiate it, but one of their friends will, and it's going to get into, things and that they shouldn't be doing. So you just got to be, very cautious and really look out for the kids.
Hey, Robert, we're going to Christmas holidays right now, and a lot of the moms, the wives, the girlfriends, whatever, everybody's going to go shopping. What's your advice this, Christmas holiday season for shopping for gifts and all that? What everything we're seeing stateside happening, what is your recommendation as for safety tips for these folks shopping?
Well, one I think is, continue to live your life. Right. But we use the term situational awareness, but, pay attention to your surroundings. Right. The difference between becoming a victim and getting away sometimes is, the understanding and recognition of early indications and warnings of a bad scenario that could be developing. And for those, parents, moms, or anybody else, trust your instincts. Right. That sixth sense that, God gave us all that for a reason. And many times victims are interviewed after the fact because I knew I should have not gotten that elevator. Something was wrong. They still did.
Right.
So, and I don't care if it's embarrassing to run the other way or to scream and you're not really sure, do whatever it takes, but don't walk down that dark alleyway if something's telling you it's wrong. I mean, don't walk down it anyway, but that's where people become, because time and time again, when they trust your instincts, that they're there to protect you. They're there to help you. So do that. Again, situational awareness, know your exits, pay attention to your surroundings, pay attention to what's going on, out there in the environment. I don't want to try and turn moms or other families into security experts, but, just common sense things, Mark, always win the day, right?
Yeah. Maybe keep eyes on, not on the phone so much.
Yeah. Keep your eyes on the phone, and whatever you do when you're on the roads, if somebody's driving like a lunatic, don't get into it with them. Hold your breath, clench your fists, and move on and let them go be somebody else's problem. That is probably the biggest ever, I guess, piece of advice is road rage is alive and well. People are stressed and you just don't know. There's countless stories of guys pulling out guns, shooting people for no reason at all. They cut them off or that, this or that, and they got into it. Do not do any of that. And this is advice I tell my own wife constantly because I see it out there, Mark. I see it on the road, even for myself, and I'm just amazed. People are on edge, and they're going to snap like this, and you just want to avoid that.
Are they on edge because everybody's on that pandemic? It's been a year and a half lockdown. Everybody's at the boiling point. It's just like you said, a snap. It's one little thing, one trigger pull, and if people go up.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, life's not very fun right now, right? I mean, the pandemic, whether it's economic, they may have lost a family member to COVID. Kids have been school. The tension's been ramped up. I mean, it is what it is. But people aren't happy. I mean, not to get on the political front because it's one way or the other, but I think you keep seeing the same trend every midterm. The party in power gets voted out. Then the next year, the president, he gets voted out, and you're going to continue to see that. And people just aren't overly happy about what's going on right now. And, and there's certainly problems. The media's got everything, the negative news cycle. So people are, believing some of this stuff, and some of it's real, right? And it is what it is. So, and that translates to, not so nice things happening from time to time.
So you got the new variants coming out, that's blowing up right now. It's they're saying we maybe have another lockdown, maybe a few weeks from now, we'll know more from CDC. And then of course you got the midterm elections. So you got these polarizing issues hitting us first of the year, which are going to make, that's maybe change the way corporations are allowing people to come back to work. I may delay that for another 8 months or whatever. And then also you have the housing foreclosure issue of them holding that back due to helping renters and landlords out. So there's like 3 different underlying variables that could be a trigger pull there. So there's a lot of crazy stuff happening.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and you talked about bringing people back to the workplace, right? For us in the industry, our security directors, what does that look like? And what should you be monitoring, right? And I would argue one is that what are those associated mental health risks, right? That people could, going back into highly stressed people coming back into a workplace, and could that manifest itself in acts of workplace violence? Question mark, right? But I think our security professionals and brothers out there and sisters have to really think about what that looks like. And a lot of this is probably going to happen in a hybrid model, right? Where companies are going to do that based on their own industry, their own employees, and how and when they bring them back, right? But that needs to be think about. And I think the other concern that I hear from some of my clients and corporate security people is, what are these, what are some of our remote workers actually doing, right? It's an operational risk. What are they doing when they're on the clock and they're out? Are they even working? Are they, what's happening? And, those types of things. So it's an evolving picture, Mark, and, stay tuned and put on your seatbelt, and we'll have to see where it all goes.
Yeah, I think you're right, Robert. It's going to be the Wild West in 2022, without a doubt. It's just going to be, that's why you guys are taking a flag and putting in the United States now? Because there's going to be plenty of business for everybody.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's all about, right? To help your customers, and we all need to stick through this, and we'll get through it together as a nation, as a country, and as professionals in the industry. And we've got to, when our clients call us, we got to, have a real fiduciary obligation to do the best thing for them, and to take care of them and protect them, and move forward.
Yeah, one big question is being asked right now in the security world. People call me, ask me what I know. Is there going to be a lockdown? If so, do you think it's going to be back a year ago like we had it, or do you think we are advanced enough with the vaccines to where we're pretty safe not to have to go through that again? What are you hearing out there from different sources?
I don't think we are. I mean, don't quote me on this. I'm not responsible for making those decisions, right. But you follow some of the stuff, and I think the country's tired of that and other things. You saw some of the recent changes that they're changing the testing requirements for people coming back into the U.S. internationally. You have to test within 24 hours. It was 72. They've extended the mask mandates on air travel, public transportation through, I believe it's March 18th. So that's not going to make a lot of people happy, but I think they'll do it, right? They'll continue to do it because it's perceived as helpful. But Omicron, we'll have to see where that leads everybody. I mean, it's too early to determine. There's, I'm hearing stories that it's very mild from those who actually get it, and then there's others that, hey, we don't know, it's the end of the world, and we'll have to see where that goes. But I think it's a valuable lesson that we're not out of this thing yet. We may be done with the virus, but the virus is not done with us. And so we just got to continue to move forward and, figure out how to live with it and how to provide our services and help our customers through it as well.
I think humanly, people just want to control science. And, when was the last time you were able to control a flu bug? You get flu vaccines for flus and all that. It's something science. It's just hard to predict. You can't predict science.
Yeah. And listen, I'm somebody, and I think where it really impacts people the most is I think everybody's settled into their way, but really if you're traveling, right?
Yeah.
And, you got to have the mask on, and you got to have all the different forms and, websites, applications that the airlines want you to fill out, showing your vaccine card, going and getting the COVID tests. Whether you're in a hotel or figuring out where to go get those and having the paperwork and then having it approved. It's a pain in the butt, Mark. There's no effing but it is what it is. And, to keep everybody safe. And so I think that's going to continue. If you're a traveler out there, you just need to be prepared. You need to be educated and also understand, Mark, that it could change on a moment's notice. You're in a foreign country, all of a sudden, Omicron is determined to be horribly dangerous, horribly transmissible. They could shut it down, and then you got to quarantine for 14 days. So it's the world we live in. But as security professionals, what do? We improvise, adapt, and overcome. Right? That's at least what they tell us.
Military mindset. How do you get through it? That's it. That's the rules to success, right there. Overcoming. Any parting words, Robert? I know you got to wrap things up here. Any parting words to the industry? Advice to the people for bodyguards for this coming year?
No, I mean, use whatever downtime you have to, broaden your skill sets, right? Don't be a single trick pony, right? Broaden yourself out a little bit, invest in yourself, develop yourself. It is a little bit of a tough time because the global commerce isn't there and everything, as Mark mentioned earlier, but build on your skills, because that's the one thing you ultimately got is, who you are, your skills you bring to the table, and your reputation. And in the long term, that's what will keep you successful. We will lose a lot of folks in the industry because just for survivability, Mark, because, the size of the pie in terms of the opportunity to provide services for clients is much smaller in our business. It is. Sure. So the survival of the fittest. So those who are the fittest that can market themselves well, that can deliver well, and that can maybe sustain a little bit more risk will be the winners, right? And the other ones will, transfer into maybe other industries and just to survive, right? So that would be my advice. And technology. Learn cyber stuff, drones, and anything you can do to broaden your skill set out, I think is, times of peace, prepare for war.
Wow. I love that quote. It's a
yeah.
my throat.
Yeah.
You said
good, man.
Very key thing, Robert. Technology. And eventually technology is going to be cheaper than having a bodyguard or an EP agent on a site or a house in a state. It's just where it's going with drone technology and camera. It's just, I think the bodyguard idea of being an EP agent is going to be a dying breed. The technology is going to replace that eventually. When? I don't know, but I see that happening in the next few years for sure.
Yeah. So if we're all going to become dinosaurs, let's hold it off as much as possible, right?
Exactly. I got a few more years left. Yeah. I got to get my equity.
So, I used to joke. I had a joke with, funny joke with some of my employees, and we used to call it the ESL list.
Okay.
And you never wanted to be on the Dodge ESL list. You know what the ESL list stands for?
No, I don't.
Mark?
No.
The endangered species list.
Oh,
so you better perform. You better do your job well. But
what are your numbers? What are your numbers?
Yeah, exactly. Right. What have you done for us lately?
Exactly.
But no, thank you, Mark. It's been awesome talking with you again, and we'll stay connected. And thanks again for the invite to the Fearless Mindset podcast. It's a great venue that you've done and built out, and I love seeing some of your other guests and really some great people.
Yeah, thanks for Robert for being a supporter of the show. And for the people listening or watching right now on your phones, if you want to get a hold of Robert, just go through his LinkedIn channel, probably the best way to do it. He's a busy guy. And also on iHeartRadio, you can find me, just Mark Ludlow, and you'll find me over the Fearless Mindset, Amazon, YouTube. I'm all over the place with LinkedIn, so I'm easy to find. Instagram, I'm there too for the podcast. But if any questions, comments, whatever, we'll be posting this on LinkedIn. And if you want to get Robert's attention, probably the best way to just make a comment on LinkedIn and get his attention. He's a very busy guy, and he's probably got 3 more meetings after this. So we're going to wrap this thing up and call it a Friday. And thanks, Robert, for your time. And we'll see everybody soon.